Uh, Welcome back to the second lecture of system designs, and in today's lecture we will be discussing on databases. So in the last video I have discussed that the complexity of systems has been increasing day by day, that the millions of users are using a particular web server. So with time things are changing and we need databases here to manage the web servers efficiently. So what does databases exactly do here is, if we make a visual representation again, we can see that this is a user here, and user is sending a request to a web server. So this is, imagine this is the web server. Now a web server can perform a read request or a write request or update request to a database. So whenever a web server makes such request to a database, we will ultimately return data to this web server. So whenever we are making any read request, we are returning data, and whenever we are writing anything to the database, we are writing that stuff into this database, and then we are returning it to the server. So that's the entire mechanism here. But the important point to note is that with time, the databases, using a single database is not at all efficient here. So relational database management system is what we have heard in a lot of times, and we have mostly used that. So relation database system is widely used and the oldest database possible. But there is another type of database here that we will be discussing in the upcoming lectures, that is the non-relational database. So what is the difference between this relational and non-relational database here is, relational database basically represents data in rows and tables. That is a 2D matrix, you can say, that is rows and columns are there. But in a NoSQL database there is no such rows and columns. There is a concept called key value stores. So there can be like what I can say, it's kind of a hash map thing. It can be key value store, it can be column stores, it can be document stores. So diving deep into NoSQL is not right now the scope of this video. We will be diving deep later on, but just know the difference that join operation, that is the natural join operation that we do on the RDBMS stuff, is not at all applicable here. And NoSQL database is kind of a right choice if the data is kind of unstructured, that is no structure is possible for the particular data that we are trying to fetch or store. The data is huge and there is like super low latency, a particular application is required. So for that case we will be using a NoSQL database. So the practical application and the real life application we will be like coming soon, when will be designing applications like Netflix, Facebook and stuff in this upcoming tutorials. But before that, when we are clearing the basics, we won't dive deep into such stuffs. So I guess the two concepts are quite clear here, that whenever your user is using a server, uh, whenever a user is requesting a server, it is either sending a read request or write request to its database, and in response it is getting the data back. So we can use either a NoSQL database or a relational database management system, depending upon the requirement of the system. So that's it, and in the next video we'll be discussing about the horizontal and vertical scaling.